This video shows you how I combined ComfyUI, Blender, and Facebook's new Sam3D to make what I call the 3 pillars of AI mocap. Technically, it should be called the 3 pillars of Sam3D, but I don't think Facebook would like me just calling it that. Everything in this video you see is for sale on my website in a package called the 3 pillars. You can download the workflow, the Blender add-on, and any other Blender add-ons that you see in this video should also be listed in the description, whether they are available to be purchased or downloaded for free. With that introduction out of the way, let's get straight into the first pillar. Okay, this is pillar 1 of my 3 pillars of AI mocap. This is, of course, ComfyUI in a workflow that is running the Sam3DBody process image. So I'm doing this in a workflow batch, so this is actually running the workflow over and over and over again, incrementing the file number by 1. If we go to this location on my hard drive, we can see that I have frames of a video. This was separated by a completely different workflow that I use, but it's literally just an FFmpeg command that splits the video into frames. So obviously I put in an MP4, put the output path, and out comes a stack of frames. Please note you don't have to use this workflow. There are many ways to turn a video into frames. You could also use Blender, or you could even use ComfyUI in a less stupid way using VHS. That's a Video Helper Studio. There are thousands of tutorials on how to use the Blender method, so just look it up. There's at least one tutorial for every Blender user in the universe, so there's thousands of them. Not hard to find at all. And I had it run at 24 frames per second. You could probably do it 12 frames per second and be just as fine. It will definitely take longer the more it goes. So here I have the output from that workflow. And there are about 600 frames here. So I made it run 642 times. I put the input path, I put the output path. So let's start at the input. The input goes into the load image batch, which is essentially the entire node that makes sure that it works. You can increment the index if you want to start as a specific file number. I have it set to 0, so it starts at 0 or 1 or whatever the lowest number will be. And that goes into the process image, SamBody 3D, which seems to run 60% of 12 gigabytes of VRAM, so it could probably fit in probably a 10 gigabyte or maybe even an 8 gigabyte GPU. Oh, look, it just finished. That was actually going for an hour, by the way. But once it's in the air, it loads the model from Hugging Face. You need to put in a Hugging Face token to download the model, assuming that you have been approved by Facebook's gated model. Check the GitHub on this node for that information, because I did not make this node set. I'm actually very happy to say that someone else made this and not me. And they did a pretty damn good job at it. The only issue I see is that you can't output to a specific file path, but luckily you can output a specific file name. So it processes the image, it creates a skeleton and puts a mesh on the skeleton, and it's always in that specific pose. It is not an animated keyframe, sadly, so it just saves as a pose. So it goes into here, and it saves to the directory, the main output directory. I failed to mention that when I say it's going to the main output directory, that is whatever output directory you configured ComfyUI to output all files. However, every file has the same exact name as the PNG that it was inputted. So, for example, frame 1 is going to be 001.png, and then the file it outputs is going to be 001.png.fbx with said pose in the output folder. However, you'll notice I also have this plugged into the terminal node, which is a completely separate node. Very useful, but not on the ComfyUI manager either, sadly. So That's a shame, but all this terminal node does is it loads a script that will be available to download as well. All this script does is that it moves a file from one place to another. So scans a directory for files ending in .png.fbx, because every files that come out of this batch will always end in a .png.fbx, because it's processing it from a PNG to an FBX. You could actually use this if you needed to in a normal terminal, because it uses the same exact syntax as a regular old... Oh, I'm in the wrong folder. As a regular old shell script. And I do this. It will tell me that you can input a -i for an input directory and a -o for an output directory. And being that my main output directory is usually a massive fucking mess, usually my output is a massive fucking mess, so I will usually want to store my frames into a folder. And as you can see, this exported to this location, which has all these FBX files. This has outputted a bunch of FBXs, all for each frame. If I do this in order of name, sort by name, you'll notice it starts with frame 1. If I open that in CAD Assistant, you'll see that this is the first frame of the animation. And if I go to the last frame, you'll see it's the last frame of the animation. I'll show you how to import these into Blender as one FBX file, because obviously you'll need that to get from point A to point B, and that's where the second pillar comes in. All right, here we are at the second pillar of AI Mocap. Here I have an add-on that I quote-unquote vibe coded. I didn't put the maintainer name on yet. I will do that later when I upload it. But this is the FBX sequence importer. What it does is, what you want first, well, what it does is that it lets you import a bunch of FBX files, and if they have the same armature name and the same bone names, it will turn that sequence of FBXs into an animation. And I can prove that if I go to my first test. As you can see, here I have the sequence all right here. Now, obviously, the body looks like horrid body horror Sims baby, but as you can see, all the bones are here and they're moving with their locations. Now, of course, that's not very helpful if you want to retarget that to another armature, but that's where pillar 3 comes in, and we'll get to that. But as you can see, once you have it retargeted, it does come out as a proper animation, complete with, dancing. Going back to our new file. First of all, I'm going to go to the directory that we have all of our files in, and I'm going to try and import it. But you'll see it's grayed out. Now, there's a reason for that. You obviously need a version of the FBX that is not in a pose already. So, as you can see, if you just import the first frame, there's no keyframes, and it's already in the pose, which means it has already applied the armature pose, which is not ideal. So, what you want to do is start off with a pose to be your base pose. And I would recommend just looking online, finding a T-pose, and using the same Sam3D to just generate a T-pose model. So I'm going to go ahead and run it. Obviously, I'm not going to run it 642 times, but if I run it once, it creates the T-pose file. And if I go to the output folder where it is, you'll see it's already there because I already had it. So first of all, we import said T-pose. So import FBX, T-pose, and there we go. He is in a proper T-pose. Now we don't necessarily need the mesh. I'm just going to keep it for aesthetic reasons. Next, we can go to File, Import FBX Sequence to Selected Armature. And now we're going to go to the folder that I made. I think I called it Go. We're going to just hit A to select all files and import FBX Sequence, and then Blender will lock up for a few minutes. I say a few minutes, let me paint a better picture of how long these usually take. So when you import a FBX sequence, usually 500 frames will take about 35 minutes to import, depending on your system specs. If you have a very low-end PC, it will take a very long time. But assuming you have similar specs to mine, which is i7 with 32 gigabytes of RAM, it should take about 35 minutes for a 500 frame video. If it's 1,000 frames, it will take an hour. I'm going to work on seeing if I can improve import times. I don't know why it takes so long, but it has to process every single frame, compare every single bone and every single armature for every single frame, so that's why it takes so long. I'm sure there's a way I can improve speed, and that's something I'm going to work on. All updates are free, by the way, so make sure to keep an eye out for them. I believe if you bought it from my website, it will give you an email update, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, it does take a little while. Sorry. While it processes the armature animations by comparing it to the base armature here and creating that, creating an animation for every frame that we imported, essentially. I said it would take a few minutes. Depending on how many frames that you have, it may actually take a lot longer. But you can tell that it is doing its job because you can see the memory going up and down for Blender. So just monitor that if you want to, or just monitor whatever. Maybe you might want to open Blender with the terminal or console if you're on Windows, although I don't think this process will work on Windows. It might. We'll see. But we'll just have to wait until it's finished. Finally. And now it is done. As you can see, the armature is working as expected. This is kind of a little bit weird, but once you hide that, it actually looks proper. And what helps is to also delete the movement of the root bone. Actually, maybe don't do that because that bone tracks the position of the hips. I don't know why they selected that bone to track the position of the hips, but if you want to make sure that it is retained, which clearly in this animation was kind of needed, but I still screwed up anyway, make sure you make note of that, aka joint 0. And now it's a little bit more sustained. So, that's how you do that, but can we get it even further? Well, that is where Pillar 3 comes in. Here we are at Pillar 3 of my 3 pillars of AI Mocap. So, I made this, part of this add-on that imports the FBXs is also a sort of semi-retargeting. So I can add a VRM humanoid armature. This should be compatible with most VRM character models, but if not, there is going to be a way around that, and we'll get to that at the other half of this part of the pillar. I lied. Anytime I talk about the other half of this pillar, I'm really just talking about retargeting add-on that I, at the time, had not made yet. I now have available on my website, as well as the sequence importer. The retargeting add-on is called R&R. That's short for retarget and rename. So if you want to snag that, you can. But sadly, this video will not go into instructions on how to use it. Sorry. Any retargeting tools you see in the video is going to be included in the FBX sequence tool. So as you can see that these bones are oriented correctly, but these bones are not, because these bones are completely dependent on location rather than rotation and scale. And these ones are based off of rotation. So obviously you move the arm and it moves the rest of the arm. While this one, although yes, you can move the arm, when it steps through the animation, it's not rotating the arm, it's moving their location, which is fine, because the add-on, if you select this armature first, holding shift, select this armature, so you select the Sam3D armature first, then the VRM armature. This armature is included in Saturday 06's VRM add-on, which I would recommend if you're going to be doing anything 3D character, in my opinion. And then we have this option down here, constrain VRM to uni-rigged Sam3D. And now you'll see that the VRM is now constrained to that. Now you'll notice you'll still need to do some tweaking because obviously these bones are not rotated correctly. And you can do that with some local rotations like so, like so. And obviously the head is not correct. We could do that like so, like so, like so, and I imagine like so. Yeah. Actually, I believe we can just rotate this. Yeah, there we go. And then it rotates everything in the correct rotation. So you just do that. And then what you do, because now, of course, this armature has no keyframes, even though it is moving as intended. But what we can do, we go to Pose, Animation, Bake Action, and then, of course, we select Visual Keying and Clear Constraints, which will remove these stupid constraints so that it is totally on its own. We hit OK. Wait a few minutes. And now it's done. These bones are moving on their own without any help of the other armature here. And we could probably just delete that. And all you need to do now is the second half of the pillar is retarget this to whatever armature you need it to be on. Now what you could do, if you made your VRM character inside of the VRM add-on, or in Blender using the VRM add-on, I did not say export, I swear I said import. I can import a VRM from... Now, I don't think this will work on ones made in Vroid, sadly. I'll have to take a look and see if I can fix that. Here's my character. And if I am correct, my character should have the same exact bone names as the other one. So this bone is the same, upper arm. And this bone is the same, upper arm. So I have an add-on for rigging or animating game rigs. But this could work in the same way once I have a proper retargeting add-on. I'm planning on making a proper retargeting add-on, and I will add that to this video once I have made it, but actually, technically, what you could do instead is, first of all, insert a keyframe, then copy all these keyframes. And paste them here. It didn't completely work, but if I do it correctly by copying all of the keyframes for all bones and stop fucking doing that. There we go. As long as your armature shares the same bone names, it should work pretty much the same. And of course there are some issues like the head bone not being correct. For some reason this is not named correctly. I don't know why, but we can fix that by looking for the rotation. Is it Z? No, it's Y. No, it's X. And that should work out. And you may have to do these tweaks. These tweaks are necessary. They're always going to be when it comes to mocap retargeting. But it sure is easier than animating it yourself, huh? And there you go. You could probably improve it even further by by locking down the feet to a inverse kinematic or a copy location. And you could also improve it better with some other techniques. Like, so for example, this is facing outward when it's supposed to be facing inward. So messing with these do help a lot. So if I wanted to fix this so that it's not facing outwards, I could. Alternatively, I would probably just lock my existing armature to the original Sam3D thing so that I can transfer it that way. But what I really want to do is make, instead of it being my GameRiggy add-on, I would use an actual retargeting add-on. One that's similar to GameRiggy, where I can constrain them and then select the bones properly so that I know which bones go where. So that's pretty much it, though. And it is way better than previous tools such as XR Animator, which could technically do this, but they didn't really have the same kind of power and, you know, ease of not having to cut out the background and blah, blah, blah before inputting it into XR Animator. It just works. It just goes in and it works. So, I hope this helps. If you want to buy this set of pillars and hopefully wait for the rig constrainer or my new rig constrainer add-on to come out, you can go ahead, go to the description right now and buy it from my website. And that's it. That's pretty much it.